morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. It is Tuesday, April the 19th here in Canada, Quebec City, Canada. And just tuning into finished tuning in actually to a Gartner webinar, and it was quite insightful. It's in the HR area on the transformation of human resources and human HR talent. It was a lovely presentation given by Hannah Nienberg. She's a director analyst and has been with Gartner for 10 years now. She is located in Germany. It was a great, well thought out, well put together presentation, very easy to understand, flowed very nicely. Communication was superb. She basically went through 3 chapters. Firstly, operational efficiency, spending and staffing, and spending on processes. Chapter 2, she talked about the alignment with business strategy. And thirdly, there were some communication about the modern business models being more flexible and agile operating models, because many HR companies and organizations and individuals are still operating largely with a 25-year-old operating model. So we'll get into those 3 chapters. There was good news she started with, of course, and that is there's a lot of money to the budgets, added to the budgets. That's the good side. So lots of spending, but the not so great part about that is it's getting much more difficult to do their jobs in HR. So even though there's larger budgets by quite a significant increase, actually from last year, probably because the job is getting much more difficult post-COVID, and then pre-COVID budgets were not as flush as the post-COVID budgets. So those are the good parts. The bad parts are to follow. Of course, there's always challenges. I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad news, but definitely challenges to face after COVID, of course. So the challenges uniquely post-COVID are obviously remote, hybrid, and on-site options. And people don't want to go back to work. In fact, 64% don't want to go back to the office, and they really demand flexibility. Otherwise, they're going to be leaving, and the business is going to be losing productivity. If you lose people, you're losing productivity. So it pays to invest in the flexibility around remote, hybrid, and on-site options for employees. So at the same time that people are demanding this type of flexibility, they may be losing connection with the company and people. So there's another challenge to keep connected with the staff. And if you're not staying connected, there's a lot of pull to pull them away to other companies, to other places. So that challenge is going to be a delicate balance. And having said all that, what are the business strategies? The 2 top priorities for business are growth. And the number 2 is obviously technology. Now, maybe not obviously, but largely technology is can be leveraged for expansion and growth. And the automation in particular, automation is also causing some anxiety among HR professionals as they think it's going to replace them. As many people, when they hear the word automation, think immediately they'll be replaced. And that's true in some cases, but that's not the case for HR professionals. Think of automation as a tool to build the capacities of your business, which is you have more time to spend with people. And this is a people industry. You need to have the time to talk to people, to look for people, and to, in terms of white collar jobs, of course, it's white glove, high touch. So you need that time. And the automation piece will help with the administration tasks. And in 2007, I put on a conference called Office of Tomorrow. And this is the type of sessions and education, learning, and communications we were having with financial professionals. They were financial advisors, and they're always looking for ways to build the capacity of their business. So the bottom line, they can talk to 10 people, for example, but if they're leveraging technology for administration tasks, they can talk to 20 people, for example. So we're always trying to sell on that, building the capacity of your business. So building the capacity to have more time for people. So alleviating those fears, change management professionals are good at doing that sort of thing. So keep in mind that automation is your friend in this case and not necessarily your competitor or enemy. So those were the business alignment strategies. We're going to get into more detail on those three main topics. But I found it an interesting poll that she had done where HR professionals are actually not largely project based or flexible roles. Change management experts are good fits for these roles, and having honest conversations with the people that you have more time to talk to ensure that they really will fit in that role is important. So, given the time to have honest conversations with the people that you seek to hire, be it in pharmaceuticals, for instance, you have to have that high touch, white glove approach to white collar professionals. And then blue collar, there's not as much technology involved, so it takes less time and less spending. So you have to balance the spending and your time. So that honesty piece is really important, so that you're not just throwing bodies to fill gaps and then later turning out to have it be a costly mess because it's not good for the business, it's not good for the employee. So you can save some efficiency. Efficiency is honesty is actually going to help you be more efficient. In other words, in these instances, so the automation piece will allow you to have those honest conversations because you'll have more time to do that. So I guess that's where I wanted to go with that piece. And she went to talk on the rising attrition rates is another challenge. It has to be transformative there. So what are the global challenges? The one piece is the faster pace of business. So hence why these models are important to update and improve so that HR can react quicker, because that's their main problem. They're not reacting quick enough. So it would make sense to have more project-based, flexible roles to create that agility and a more flexible and agile HR operating model. And along with that, you're increasing the use of technology. So those are all very sensible types of things. So again, the roadmap here is operational efficiency, strategic alignment with the business, flexible and agile HR operating models. So one important piece, again, is measurement, right? So benchmarking, KPIs, what's important to you, what's important to the business, understanding the business, and how expensive is the HR function. Do you have the right amount of people in the right roles? Where does all the money go? How are you overstaffed or understaffed? So the benchmarks and the KPIs, she's given suggestions there along those lines and how to break that down. And she said a good rule of thumb when doing that in the benchmark is not to panic when you're seeing and comparing to other HR companies or roles or individuals, but take it with a grain of salt, because the important piece with KPIs and measuring and these benchmarking tools and techniques is important to give you direction. And it can also validate what you're doing and give you confidence that you are going in the right direction. Again, take it with a grain of salt. It allows you some sense of understanding where you're fitting in the larger HR pie or group. And then you can take that with a grain of salt and measure your KPIs and look at your KPIs and the trends and analysis that way. So what type of KPIs are you looking for, and how would you analyze and break that down? She talks about internal spend and external spend. So what are you spending on people, technology, and then on consulting and professional services versus outsourcing spend? So all those types of things you can break down. And across industries, you can look at what the function spends are for like cross industry mediums, like pharmaceuticals. We talked about the blue collar workers and the white collar workers, and you have to spend a bit more there on the high touch white glove approach when you're hiring white collar workers, as opposed to blue collar workers not having as much technology and your expenses aren't as much. So you look at that piece. And, cross industry, you look industry specific to the spending trends that you have there. Here was an interesting observation, and that is how is the spend distributed to recruiting and then to total rewards? That is staffing and recruiting, learning, development, total rewards, payroll, HR technology, employee relations, talent management, organizational development, talent analytics, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, I found the lowest spend to me seemed, well, obviously staffing and recruiting is your highest spend, and learning and development, total rewards too along there. And then you have all those admin pieces and technology pieces in the medium side. But diversity inclusion, there seems to be only 2% spend there. So that might not be, that may be an area where you want to look to. And of course, one of the questions was, do you immediately go and ask your senior executives about more spending for diversity, equity, and inclusion? She said that depends. Actually, when you do the measurements in the KPIs, you may be where you want to be. And if not, that's a question you could ask: more budget for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that was, to me, interesting to see that number. There's a lot of data here. And a lot of it talked also on the highest budget increase expected for HR technology, recruiting, and DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI. I think that's a new one for me. I think I heard it as something else. I like that. DEI. It kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? I like that term better. So, increasing operational efficiency, you need to improve your HR staffing decisions. So how do you do that? Again, with the KPIs, you measure, where does the money go? Do you have the right amount of people in the right roles? Are we overstaffed? Those sort of questions and KPIs are what you want to be looking at and measuring. And then being industry specific. Also, you want to map these relationships out of efficiency and the organizational size. I think she had mentioned one HR professional for 60 employees is a good benchmark. And then again, one senior vice president HR position for 400 employees. So looking at what the trends are and the analysis there to, map that out on a grid about organizational side compared with efficiency. So you want to do the data analysis and comparison there to understand where you could be making improvements or where you can build confidence in that you're making the right decisions and on track. I think the last thing she had said for the questions in the benchmarking piece is you can ask yourself, how does my current spending and staffing allocation compare to the benchmarks? And you can also ask, are my HR operations efficient? Am I underinvesting or overinvesting in certain areas? And thirdly, are my investments in HR technology, recruiting, and diversity, equity, inclusion sufficient to battle the war for talent, enable digitalization, and meet employees' experiences? All good questions to be asking in terms of measuring where you're at. And just to recap the three things again is operational efficiency, strategic alignment with the business, flexible and agile HR models. What would those models look like? We'll get to that, but we're getting on to number 2 after getting through the spend and the benchmarking and the analysis, trending analysis, analyzing the trends, and that being along with the spending and the technology and that sort of thing. So now we're getting to chapter 2. And she's talking about 4 ways to increase strategic business alignment. Evaluate the market trends we talked about as business for perceived HR value, because it's all about delivering value. How do we understand what is valuable to the business, what is aligned with the business, and what is providing value to the business? We have to consider HR functional maturity. Very cute analysis and metaphors of Snow White and the 7 dwarves and mirror, mirror on the wall. It's cute. But yes, it is a hard look in the mirror to see if the functional maturity is there or not. And then prioritizing services with impact on talent outcomes. And what does all that mean? Well, first of all, if you're evaluating market trends, you're looking at the growth of technology in the workforce, right? And then what does she mean by perceived value to the business? That's a great question, because there's a values assessment that she points out here, and I'll add the link to it. So, what are your product offerings, service approach, and staff capabilities? These are values assessments for three to talk about. 3 points. Prioritize HR service with impact. Well, what's the impact to employee and manager? Well, there's performance, there's discretionary effort, and there's intent to stay. Those are impacts and how people are evaluated in terms of their impact on employees or staffing requirements. And this one, mirror on the wall, of assessing your function's maturity, you check your HR's capability to deliver on priorities and to prioritize needs and to identify quick wins. So we identified what the strategic business needs were. The top two is expansion and growth, and then leveraging technology to expand and grow. And then automate the HR process, for example, so that you can build the capacity in your calendar to spend more time with people, and asking those honest questions to ensure that they really want to be there and they really can do that role and want to do that role. And that is better for the recruit, the employee, the staff, if you will, and the business. Another set of questions to ask for KPIs. How well is your HR work aligned to the strategic business priorities? Are you aligned to that growth? Are you aligned to leveraging that technology and growing? 2, how would business assess the value of the HR function? Well, we just talked about those 4 pieces. Evaluate the market trends, ask business for perceived HR value, prioritize HR services with impact on talent outcomes, and consider the functional maturity model. Lastly, is my HR function mature, capable enough to meet business priorities? That's what we said. Fourthly, consider HR functionality maturity. And you may want to get an outside consultant's opinion on that as well. So operation efficiency, number 1, strategic alignment with the business, number 2, flexible and agile HR operating models, number 3. So operating models. Unfortunately, she says the current structures do not support HR mandates because they're 25 years old. Basically, you're working on models that are far too outdated. She took a poll on how many people were allowed to work flexibly and on a project basis. And again, another surprising number, 3% of people in HR functions are flexible project-based. 23% are shared services, which is great, 14% leadership, HR generalists, 14%, HR COEs, 30%, and 15% HR business partners. But I found that, again, a surprising number, along with the number we talked about, DEI only being 2% budget, and then only having 3% flexible project-based HR function roles. Interesting numbers, in my opinion. And then I'm not an HR expert, but we do rely on HR, and it's a very important piece, and more important after the pandemic and during the pandemic. So the 2 operation models, number 1, have a shared services first mentality. Number 2, take a dip in the pool, problem solver pool. Yay, my favorite place to be. And so having the shared services first mentality is, taking some of that from the executives that they don't need to be working on the recruiting piece, and building in, checklists for hires and strategic activities and operational activities, combining those and doing reporting and analytics on those, employee data, document administration, first line employee support, and then, creating the whole HR team in the shared services first mentality. What does that look like for the future, an HR operating model of the future? You have the head of HR, and then under that, you'd have the strategic talent leaders going into the HR problem-solving pool, outputting the next generation of COEs. And then on the other side, you have the HR COOs and filtering down to HR operations and service delivery team. What is encompassing the HR operations and service delivery team? Shared services, human capital, intelligence, people relations managers, and HR technology teams. Hard to argue with. Agile HR roles and resourcing redesign. She gave a beautiful image here of how the chief HR officer can get through to the business execution, the disciplines, the front office, the solutions development, and internal controls. And then from there, down to the service line owners and the solutions deployment pool. I'm going to add the link to this as well, so you'll be able to dig into it a little bit deeper than my just giving you a summary. What you should start doing tomorrow: more operation efficiency, more strategic aligned with the business, more flexible and agile HR operating models. The three things she told us that she discussed at the beginning of this presentation. And that was very well done. I thank you, Hannah, and I'm more than happy to share that with folks in my media channels. I appreciate it. And for everyone else, what I'll do is I will include the links, of course, so that you can follow up and dig into yourself. Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée.